This is booked for drama, where stories burn, hearts break, the tea is always hot and never a part 2. Today we're diving into Alpha's breeding deception. Let's go. Chapter 1. Don't worry, Lillian, I'll personally take the baby to the operating room once it's born. It's an honor for her and the pup to contribute to your recovery. Through the door, I could hear Caleb's voice on the phone. My stomach churned. I fought back the nausea as I opened the agreement I'd pulled from his drawer. Agreement for directed maternal blood and umbilical cord blood donation. It stated plainly, Party B, Tessa, will provide 200 cc of blood every 15 days during her pregnancy for Lillian, who is suffering from aplastic anemia. Party B will also voluntarily donate her newborn's cord blood for Lillian's emergency treatment. So all the blood those nurses had drawn from me wasn't for testing. It was given to Lillian. And the agreement was signed the day after I found out I was pregnant. I still remember that day, when I told him I was carrying his pup. Caleb rushed home ecstatic, swept me up in his arms, and spun me around. Turns out, it wasn't joy that overwhelmed him. It was a relief that he had finally secured the key to saving his first love's life. I felt like every drop of blood had been drained from me. My whole body went cold. I flipped to the last page. There, in bold black print, was a supplemental clause. If the cord blood is not a match, Party B, Tessa, must agree to allow a bone marrow transplant from the child once the surgical criteria are met. As compensation, after the procedure succeeds, Caleb will pay Tessa a one-time emotional damages fee of $10 million and immediately reject her, terminating the mate bond. Custody of the child will belong solely to Caleb. My child, the pup I risked my life to carry. Even before birth, he had already been labeled by his own father as nothing more than a walking blood bank and bone marrow supply. 7 years of love, all the kindness he had shown me over that time. I thought it was happiness finally arriving late, but it was all just a heartless betrayal. The agreement slipped from my fingers. My knees gave out beneath me. I barely managed to catch myself on the edge of the desk. The study door opened. Caleb walked in with a bowl of chicken soup. When he saw my pale face, he frowned slightly. Tessa, what are you doing in the study? The healer said you need to rest. His voice was as gentle as ever. But I could barely hold back the urge to vomit. I had originally come in here to question him about the agreement. I hadn't expected to overhear that call. My chest burned. 1,000 questions screamed inside me, yet I stood trembling, unable to speak. His gaze followed mine to the document on the floor. For a moment, he froze. But only for a second. Then his expression returned calmly, not a trace of panic, not a flicker of guilt. He walked over smoothly, picked up the agreement, placed it back in the drawer, and turned the key. The whole process was smooth, effortless, as though he was simply tidying up an unimportant document. Then he turned to me, standing tall, looking down. His voice was patient, condescending. So, you heard? Tessa, it's not a good habit to go through other people's things. But since you already know, I won't hide it from you. Lillian is very sick. The healer says this is her only chance. Tessa, you've always been kind. You'll help me, won't you? Chapter 2. I stared into his eyes. I used to think I saw galaxies in them, but now I realized they were nothing but a bottomless, frozen abyss. My kindness? It meant letting him treat my child like medical waste, just to save another she-wolf? My throat burned, like a glowing coal lodged inside. The pain was so intense I couldn't speak. I could only glare at him. Caleb shifted uncomfortably under my gaze, looking away. His tone carried the faintest trace of irritation. Don't look at me like that, he said. This won't harm our pup. The healer already evaluated everything. It's perfectly safe. When it's all done, the 10 million will be more than enough to give you a comfortable life. He paused, as if realizing how cold he sounded, then softened his voice into something almost coaxing. Tessa, Lillian's life matters too. We can't just stand by and do nothing. You give birth, take the money, I'll reject you. We go our separate ways. It's best for everyone. Best for everyone? Using my child, risking my life, just to save Lillian. That's what he called best for everyone. If he truly believed that, why had he spent all this time pretending to care? Why bother making up for it, day after day? All those nights he held me while we slept. All those meals he personally made for me. All the little tender moments I thought were love. Everything twisted into something calculated. A meticulous, disgusting lie. Is that so? I looked him straight in the eyes, my voice hoarse and cracking. Then what if? I don't agree. The mask of warmth Caleb had worn for the past 9 months shattered. He straightened, towering over me, his eyes as cold as ice. Tessa, this isn't up to you, he said. My mate and my child are supposed to lighten my burden. If you won't, then I'll reject you. And you wouldn't want yourself, or your wolf, to suffer, would you? With that, he turned and walked away. At the door, he paused but didn't look back. Tomorrow morning at 9, my beater will take you to the pack hospital. You'd better cooperate. There's no greater grief than a heart gone dead. My strength gave out completely. I slid down along the cold surface of the desk and collapsed, unable to even shed a tear. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out numbly. It was a bank notification. 5 million, transferred by Caleb. An advance payment. He was always so thorough. I stared at that number, and suddenly, I laughed. This was the marriage I had fought for 7 long years. 7 years of loving him. 7 years of being a fool. From now on, it was all over. Whatever came next, I'd be living for myself. Chapter 3. Early the next morning, I didn't wait for Caleb's beater to arrive. Instead, I did something completely out of character. I put on a full face of flawless makeup, then changed into Caleb's favorite white dress. When I walked down the stairs, Caleb glanced up at me, his eyes filled with scrutiny and warning. I gave him a gentle, obedient smile, then quietly sat down across from him. Caleb, I've thought it through, I said calmly. You're right, helping Lillian doesn't really cost me anything. I'll do whatever you say. Caleb clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. That's the best decision you could make. I'll have the pack elders rewrite the agreement. If you cooperate, I'll increase the compensation by another 5 million. He was always so confident I'd fall in line. Auto added to the library. I lowered my gaze, hiding the sarcasm in Van. Money doesn't matter, I said softly. What matters is, I have one condition. Name it. I lifted my head and looked him straight in the eyes. I want to meet Lillian. After all, I'm the mother of this pup, your Luna, your mate. I have the right to know whose life my child is saving. And, I want to see what kind of she-wolf is worth all this effort from you. Caleb's brows furrowed, like he was weighing the pros and cons. I pressed further, letting my voice tremble with just the right mix of hurt and resignation. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble. I just need to see her to finally let go. Let me see her, and I can bury every last foolish hope I ever had about you. Then I'll peacefully fulfill my part of this transaction. Maybe it was the word transaction that pleased him. Or maybe I looked pitiful and submissive enough. After a moment of silence, he nodded. All right. I'll make arrangements this afternoon. A weight lifted off my chest. Step 1 of the plan complete. That afternoon, Caleb drove me himself to one of the most expensive private werewolf hospitals. Compared to the basic single room I stayed in during checkups, Lillian's suite was a top-floor VIP suite, bathed in sunlight, decorated like a princess's room. So this was what favoritism looked like. It showed in every detail. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat and looked up. Lillian was wearing a pale pink hospital gown. She looked fragile and delicate, propped up weakly against the pillows. When she saw Caleb, her eyes lit up. Her voice was soft and sweet. Caleb, you're here. Then her gaze shifted to me, especially to my belly. And in that fragile expression, I caught a flash of something else. Possession, superiority, and a hint of smugness. Caleb walked over and gently tucked her blanket in for her. His every movement was tender, like she was made of glass. Lillian, I brought Tessa to see you, he said softly. Lillian finally turned her full attention to me, giving me a delicate, apologetic smile. Hello, Luna, I'm so sorry for all the trouble my illness has caused you. She gave a little cough, weak and deliberate, her eyes faintly misted. If there were any other way, I wouldn't have agreed to Caleb's plan. I hope you don't blame him. He's just really worried about me. What a masterfully pitiable performance. With just a few carefully chosen words, she painted herself as the innocent victim, all while highlighting Caleb's undying devotion to her. I stood there in silence, just watching her. Then, I smiled. I walked up to her bedside, leaned in, and whispered something only the two of us could hear. Lillian, I said quietly, you're a brilliant actress. But you'd better hope you can keep fooling Caleb for the rest of your life. And you better pray I never speak the truth. Lillian's face drained of color in an instant. Chapter 4. The softness and apology on her face faded like the tide, replaced by a fleeting flash of something cold and venomous. But she masked it quickly, slipping back into that fragile, pitiful expression. Luna, what do you mean by that? I understand you're upset. It's only natural you'd blame me. She turned to Caleb, eyes glistening as she cried like a damsel in distress. Caleb, I told you we shouldn't have let Luna come. She clearly misunderstood everything between us. Caleb's expression darkened instantly. He snapped at me in a harsh voice. Tessa, what did you say to Lillian? I straightened up, looking at him innocently. I didn't say anything. I just told Lillian how beautiful and strong she looked, even while being sick. Was I wrong? My voice was sweet, sincere. Not a single flaw could be found. Caleb narrowed his eyes, clearly not buying it, but unable to find a reason to lash out. I ignored him and reached into my bag, pulling out a sleek insulated container. Lillian, since it's our first time meeting, I wasn't sure what you liked. So I made some chicken soup myself, just something to help you recover. Hope it helps you get better soon. As I spoke, I unscrewed the lid. A rich aroma filled the hospital room instantly. I held the soup out to her, smiling with the perfect touch of grace and warmth. Go on, try it. I simmered it all night. My mate must have brought it to you many times already, hasn't he? I smiled with my eyes, but the smile never reached my heart. During my pregnancy, the only thing Caleb ever asked of me was to make chicken soup. At first, I thought it was because he loved it, but he never had any at home. Now I understand. The one who loved my cooking was Lillian. Caleb took a sip himself first, making sure it was safe, then handed the bowl over. Tessa put a lot of care into this. Don't waste it, Lillian. A flicker of triumph flashed through Lillian's eyes. She let Caleb feed her, sipping slowly and delicately from his hand like a pampered princess. Watching him put on this little show of affection, my smile only deepened. On the way back from the hospital, the silence in the car was suffocating. Caleb didn't say a word, his jaw clenched, the profile of his face sharp with tension. I knew he was angry. Angry that I, his Luna, recognized by the entire pack and blessed by the moon goddess, had dared to call herself Luna in front of Lillian. Angry that I disobeyed his instructions and went to the kitchen in the middle of the night. Angry that I wasn't being a perfect incubator. As we neared the packed house, he finally spoke, voice like ice. Tessa, drop the petty games. Know your place. Lillian's condition is fragile. She can't handle your schemes. I turned to look out the window. The neon lights of the city flickered like some grand illusion. Understood, I replied softly. Back at the pack house, I locked myself in the bedroom and immediately called my best friend, Fiona. Fiona was a messenger, something like a private investigator in the human world. She had street smarts, connections, and serious skills. Fiona, is everything in place? All good, Tessa, Fiona replied crisply. I've already contacted a nurse at that pack hospital. The price is set. She'll take care of the soup you sent. No trace left. And the medical records you asked me to dig up, Lillian's treatment history from other packs, I've got leads. I exhaled, finally feeling a bit of relief. Good. I'll wait for your update. After hanging up, I walked to the window. Down in the garden below the pack house, I saw Caleb, on the phone. I didn't need to guess who he was calling. He was soothing Lillian again. I let out a cold laugh. Caleb, Lillian, your little play has only just begun. And I'll be the one to bring down the curtain. Chapter 5. 3 days later, Fiona called. Tessa, we've got it. Her voice trembled with barely contained excitement. That chicken soup recipe the witch gave you? Turns out it reacts violently with the targeted meds Lillian's taking. A single dose isn't lethal, but it'll drastically worsen her symptoms for the next few days, pure agony. My grip on the phone tightened. What about her medical history in the other pack? I asked. Found it too, Fiona replied. That she-wolf never received any real treatment. 5 years ago, she was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, but it wasn't even close to needing a bone marrow transplant. All her medical records? Forged. Paid off a private healer to fake them. That she-wolf has been lying to Alpha Caleb from the very beginning. She's using this as an excuse to strip you of your Luna title, then conveniently get rid of your pup. After hearing everything, I didn't explode. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Step 2. Complete. Everything I'd suspected was true. This so-called redemption had always been a setup, a meticulously planned con. And Caleb was the biggest fool of all, deceived from start to finish, doing their dirty work without even knowing it. What now, Tessa? Fiona asked. You've got rock-solid evidence. Just dump it in Caleb's face, let's see how he keeps protecting that witch. No, I shook my head, staring at my own pale reflection in the mirror. Caleb wouldn't get mad at Lillian for lying to him. He'd only be furious that I dug into her past. He'd accuse me of fabricating it all just to get out of saving her. I'm making sure they both fall. Hold back for now. I want Caleb to see it with his own eyes. Watch how his precious first love ruins herself, because of him. I want him to regret every sip of that soup he fed her, for the rest of his miserable life. After hanging up, I started phase 3 of my plan. I began making chicken soup for Lillian more frequently. After a few rounds, Caleb even told me to deliver it to the werewolf hospital myself. Lillian welcomed my submissive gesture with smug satisfaction. Every time, she made sure to humiliate me a little, then make a show of letting Caleb feed her, slow and smug. And I played along, meek, humiliated, restrained. Exactly as she wanted. 2 weeks later, her health took a sharp nosedive. Her hair began falling out in chunks. Bruises started appearing across her skin. She vomited, burned with fever, and lost so much weight she was barely recognizable. The hospital issued a critical condition warning. Caleb panicked. He showed up with bloodshot eyes, bringing in the best healer in the entire werewolf realm for emergency consultation. But every expert said the same thing. It was a rare drug rejection syndrome. No one suspected the nourishing chicken soup, not when it had been personally taste-tested and fed by Alpha Caleb himself. As Lillian's condition continued to decline, Caleb grew increasingly volatile. He turned his fury on me. If you hadn't gone to see her, she wouldn't have gotten this bad. She must have gotten worse because of you. You'd better deliver that baby soon and keep Lillian alive. If something happens to Lillian, I swear, I'll make your life a living hell. I stared at his hysterical face, and laughed, on the inside. Go on, Caleb. Shout. Rage. The more you suffer, the more you lose control, the happier I am. You brought this upon yourself. Finally, one night, the werewolf hospital called again. Lillian had gone into shock. She was being resuscitated. Caleb bolted out of the house like a madman. And I knew it was time. 1 hour after he left, I sent him a message. Caleb, the rooftop cat. If you want to know why she really went into chic, come alone. Chapter 6. By the time I arrived at the cafe, Caleb was already there. He sat by the window, his back hunched and worn. In just a few days, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. The coffee in front of him remained untouched. When he saw me, his bloodshot eyes flared with searing hatred. What the hell do you want? He growled. I didn't answer. I simply slid a document folder across the table. Take a look. Once you do, everything will make sense. Caleb shot me a suspicious glance, but eventually opened the folder. Inside were the forged medical records Lillian had created, email exchanges with the private healer who helped her fake them, and her authentic diagnostic reports. Then, a full lab analysis of the chicken soup I had delivered. As he flipped through the pages, the color drained from his face. He went from pale to ashen, his fingers trembling so violently he could barely hold the papers. "No, no way," he mumbled, like he couldn't believe what he was reading. "This is fake. You forged this, didn't you?" He snapped his head up, eyes burning into me with raw hatred. "Tessa, you twisted, vicious bitch." I smiled, light, calm, untouched. "I'm the vicious one? Caleb, if what I did is vicious, then what would you call your little plan? You were willing to treat me and our unborn child as nothing more than a reusable organ bank, all for her. Did you ever stop to call yourself vicious then? You fed that poison to your beloved she-wolf, spoon by spoon, with your own hands. And now you think you have the right to accuse me? Oh, and don't bother going to the authorities," I added with a soft smile. "Because the second I step into a police station, Lillian's hope of surviving dies with me. And I'm pregnant. The law doesn't allow imprisonment for pregnant women. Thank you, Caleb, for handing me my get-out-of-jail-free card." Each word I spoke was like a hammer, pounding into his chest. His face shifted from shock to horror, from pale to completely colorless. Finally, he understood. Here was a joke, a tragic, pathetic joke, played by two she-wolves, from beginning to end. The one he loved, lied to him. The one who loved him, became his worst enemy. Peefed. A mouthful of blood burst from his lips, splattering across the white porcelain coffee cup. He clutched his chest, coughing violently, body swaying like he might collapse. I looked down at him, cold and unmoved. Not even a flicker of sympathy. My phone rang. It was Fiona. "Tessa, everything's ready downstairs. You can leave anytime." "Perfect." I stood up, looking down at the man unraveling before me. "Caleb, this is just the beginning. Enjoy the show I've prepared for you. Don't worry, I'll be waiting for you back at the pack house, watching every moment of your downfall." And with that, I turned and walked away, never looking back. By the time I reached the pack hospital entrance, Fiona was already there waiting in the car. I got in and nodded at her. "It's time." Fiona started dialing, one number after another. "Hey, I've got a story. Something explosive. About Alpha Caleb of the Bloodmorn pack." The car pulled away, merging into the night traffic. I turned to look back one last time, at the glowing silhouette of the pack hospital, ablaze with light. I had lied to Caleb. I wasn't going back to the Wolf House. I wasn't returning to the pack. I had already bought a ticket to Valiland. Caleb, Lillian, goodbye, forever. Chapter 7. Fiona drove me to the airport. I retrieved my ticket from the kiosk. I had already arranged everything with the hospital in Valiland. That's where I would safely give birth to my pup. As the scenery shifted outside the window, I felt oddly emotional. 7 years ago, I gave up the chance to study jewelry design in Valiland, all for the dream of becoming Caleb's Luna. Now, I am going back. And everything I once gave up, I would take back, one by one, with my own hands. Fiona let out a low whistle, her tone filled with admiration. "Damn, that was flawless. That's how a queen should move. But Caleb, you're really just going to let him go?" I smiled faintly. A flicker of ice crossed my eyes. "Let him go? Hardly. The gift I left him is just now taking effect. I want him to live the rest of his life in endless regret and agony." Fiona said nothing more. She just slammed her foot down on the gas. By dawn, I was on a flight to Hartley. As the plane lifted into the sky, I powered off my phone, cutting all ties to the life behind me. After I left, Fiona distributed the evidence to more than a dozen messengers from different packs, creatures best known for spreading information and gossip. #Alpha of Bloodmorn pack forced his Luna to donate blood and marrow to save his puppy love. #scheming mistress faked illness, scammed her way into money and marriage. #the Alpha and Luna scandal, a calculated murder disguised as redemption. Explosive headlines swept across pack networks like wildfire. The entire werewolf realm erupted in chaos. The Bloodmorn pack's reputation crumbled overnight. Alliance packs cut ties immediately. They lost tens of millions in partnerships and deals. Caleb was drowning in the storm of public outrage. Every pack member and council was demanding a response, but he had no explanation to give. What crushed him completely was Lillian, after she survived the emergency. She went public to defend her innocent victim persona, claiming she knew nothing. That everything had been orchestrated by Caleb. She even insisted she had cut ties with him 7 years ago, and never meant to come between him and his family. In private, she called him crying, saying she'd been forced to blame him. Listening to her sobs on the phone, Caleb felt as though he'd been jolted awake from a long delusion. He began to realize, if it were me, I would have stood by him through this crisis, not abandoned him to protect myself. But it was too late for regrets. He was charged in Werewolf court for aiding in Lillian's deception, defrauding a Luna, and attempted bodily harm to both mother and unborn pup. During the trial, he publicly released the agreement for directed maternal blood and umbilical cord blood donation. Lillian never expected him to resort to such a mutually destructive move. By the time she tried to defend herself, it was too late. All that awaited her was a long, dark life in prison. The Bloodmourn pack shattered after the agreement went public. But Caleb didn't care anymore. He locked himself inside the room we once shared. Refused to see anyone. A month passed, and he started trying to find me desperately. But any influence he might have once had vanished when the Bloodmourn pack disbanded. Those he once called allies had all turned their backs. All that remained was endless regret. He started appearing constantly on social media, begging strangers for any clue to my whereabouts. Yet no one offered help, only ridicule and condemnation. Fiona told me he'd wasted away to nothing. He looked like a walking corpse, surviving on liquor and sleeping pills. And the only word he ever mumbled was my name. Tessa. When I read those updates, I felt nothing. If anything, I found it a little pathetic. He should have thought of this before. This new, remorseful persona? Who was he trying to impress? Chapter 8. Life in Valiland was calm and peaceful. I gave birth to a healthy male pup. I named him Nolan Hart. Nolan was quiet, never fussy, his eyes were exactly like mine, clear and bright. Holding his tiny, soft body in my arms, I felt like I held the entire world. After my postpartum recovery, I began balancing motherhood with re-establishing my career. Using the $5 million Caleb had sent me, I registered my own jewelry design studio in Valiland. At a prestigious international werewolf jewelry design competition, my piece, Rebirth, won the gold medal. That was where I met Victor, the alpha of the Blue Moon pack. He told me my jewelry embodied the strength and fragility of motherhood, that in my work, he could see the soul of someone who had shattered and risen again. Later, he became my biggest investor. Our conversations grew more frequent, and a quiet, unspoken connection began to form between us. In 2 years, I built my brand from the ground up. I was no longer the she-wolf who depended on anyone else for survival. During these 2 years, I never looked back. I hadn't followed any news from home. The name Caleb meant less to me than a stranger. I thought our lives would never intersect again. Until that day, I was walking with Nolan in the park. And suddenly, a tall, gaunt figure appeared in the distance. He wore a faded trench coat, worn until nearly threadbare. His hair was a mess, his beard unshaven, hollow, watching the passing crowd like a lost soul. If it weren't for the sharpness of his features, I would never have recognized him. Caleb, the once powerful, untouchable alpha. Now I looked like a homeless drifter. Something in my chest tightened for just a second, not with love, but for those 7 years I'd buried long ago. Instinctively, I held Nolan tighter and turned to leave. But he had already seen me. Those empty eyes suddenly lit up, like a starving wolf who had spotted prey. He ran toward me, frantic, desperate. Tessa. His voice was hoarse, it was filled with wild joy and despair. Tessa, I finally found you. I took several steps back, holding Nolan close. People around us began to stare. Caleb rushed toward me but stopped just a step away, as though afraid I might vanish like a phantom if he came any closer. He stared at me for a long time. Then his gaze dropped to Nolan in my arms. His lips trembled, like he wanted to speak. But no words came out. Slowly, unsteadily, he reached a hand toward Nolan. I jerked to the side. "Don't touch him." My voice was cold as ice. Caleb froze, his hand hanging in the air. The light in his eyes instantly faded. And in its place, only endless grief and regret. "Tessa," he choked out, "I'm sorry. I know no amount of apologies could ever undo what I did to you, to our pup. Not a single day has passed without regret. Not a single day have I not thought about you. I sold the company, the house, everything. I've been looking for you non-stop. Come home with me, please. Let's start over." His eyes begged, raw, desperate. The once arrogant alpha now stood like an abandoned dog, begging for mercy. I stared at him, and all I felt was how utterly ridiculous it was. "Home? You mean the ruins of the Bloodmourne Pack? Or that house where I almost died carrying your child? Caleb, are you out of your mind? We already broke the bond, remember? You even threatened to reject me. There's nothing between us anymore. And this child, he has nothing to do with you. His last name is Hart, Nolan Hart." Chapter 9. Every word I said was like a blade, stabbing straight into Caleb's heart. His face turned deathly pale. His body swayed, barely staying upright. "No, no, that's not true. He's my son. He's my son." Suddenly, he lunged forward in a panic, reaching for Nolan. "Give him back to me. He's mine." His crazed expression startled me. I clutched Nolan and staggered back several steps. "Caleb, calm down." But he couldn't hear me. He was like a madman, obsessed, desperate to snatch the child from my arms. Just then, a sleek black Bentley glided silently to the curb. Two warriors stepped out of the car, moving swiftly. In a flash, they restrained Caleb from both sides. A man with a powerful alpha aura stepped out of the car. Victor walked up beside me, naturally shielding me behind him. He glanced at the struggling Caleb, brows slightly furrowed. "Tessa, who is this?" Before I could answer, Caleb screamed, thrashing like a wild animal. "Who the hell are you? Let go of me. Tessa is my mate, my Luna. Stay away from her." Victor's eyes flashed coldly. "So you're the scumbag ex-mate," he said calmly. "Well, Tessa is my future Luna now." And then, right in front of Caleb, he leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. Caleb froze. All the struggle left his body. He stood there like a statue drained of life, staring at us as the light in his eyes extinguished completely. "Take him away," Victor ordered his beater and the warriors, voice cool and sharp. "Make sure he never appears in front of Tessa again." "Yes, Alpha." The warriors shoved Caleb, soulless, broken, into the back of the car. Moments later, they vanished into the... And just like that, the world finally went quiet. Victor took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. He looked at me gently, voice low. "Did he scare you or Nolan?" I shook my head and gave him a small, strained smile. "Thank you, Victor, for everything, and for stepping in just now." Victor looked at me, eyes filled with warmth and sincerity. "Tessa, what I said earlier wasn't just to help you out. I meant it. Give me a chance to take care of you and Nolan." I met his sincere eyes and felt a sense of calm wash over me. Over these past 2 years, I have seen nothing but kindness from Victor. He was mature, steady, gentle, and thoughtful. He had supported my career unconditionally, cared for us in every small way, and helped us integrate into the local pack. He loved Nolan as his own. Everyone said he was the mate I truly deserved. Maybe it was time I tried again. Maybe I could open myself to something new. I stayed silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. Victor exhaled sharply in relief, then pulled Nolan and me into a warm embrace. "Tessa," he said, voice trembling, "I swear, I'll make you the happiest she-wolf in the world." I leaned into his arms, feeling his warmth wrap around me. But in my heart, the joy I expected didn't fully come. Maybe it was still too soon. Maybe some wounds take a lifetime to heal. But I was willing to try, for Nolan, and for myself. Chapter 10. Victor and I scheduled our bonding ceremony for 6 months later. During those 6 months, Caleb never appeared again. I thought he had finally given up, left Valiland for good. Until the day before the ceremony, Fiona called me from overseas, her voice dripping with mockery. "Tessa," she said, "Caleb's in trouble." I was flipping through some documents and replied casually, "What happened now?" Turns out his kidney matched an alpha in urgent need of a transplant. His parents dragged him back to that same private Werewolf hospital to donate. I held the phone in silence for a long time. Karma? Maybe this was what people meant by karma. Once, he wanted to use my child's marrow to save his precious first love. Now, he lay on that same cold hospital bed. His body was being harvested to keep someone else alive. How poetic, how brutal. Tessa, don't tell me you still care about what happens to him? Fiona sounded ready to storm through the phone and shake me if I even thought about it. I chuckled. Care? You mean whether he ends up in hell? Whether Caleb lives or dies, that's his business. It has nothing to do with me anymore. After a few more light-hearted words with Fiona, I ended the call. On the day of the bonding ceremony, the packed chapel was filled with guests. I walked down the white carpet arm in arm with Victor, step by step, toward the elders of the pack. Just as the pack elder asked the question, "Do you take?" the chapel doors suddenly burst open with a loud crash. A familiar figure stumbled inside. Caleb. He was wearing a wrinkled hospital gown. His face was yellowed and swollen. His body was thin, he looked like a ghost, barely clinging to life. Using what must have been his last ounce of strength, he collapsed at my feet with a loud thud. "Tessa, don't bond with him," he choked. "I'll die if you want. Everything I own, all my assets, every insurance policy lists you as the sole beneficiary. You can still be my llama. I will never reject you. Just come back to me. I'll give you everything." He knelt on the floor, sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. Victor looked at me but said nothing, clearly respecting whatever choice I would make. I slowly let go of Victor's hand and walked over to Caleb. I crouched down, looking directly into those bloodshot, desperate eyes. "Caleb," I said calmly, "your life, your money, disgusts me." Then I stood up. Without another glance, I turned away, took Victor's hand again, and faced the elders. "I do." Behind me, I heard Caleb's desperate, broken cry, then the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor. But none of that mattered anymore. My rebirth began at this very moment. And as for Caleb, he could take his guilt, his sorrow, and rot in hell. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, second-hand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.